What's going on, YouTube? Come back at you with another video. So I got some important information to share. Basically, I have all the paperwork concerning the 6IX9INE Treyway indictment. Recently, after court, there were some strong allegations made. Alshon Martin is where I heard it from. Basically, was alleging that Shotti was snitching and that he was going to provide the paperwork. I have all the paperwork in this case that's available to the public. We're going to go over it right now. Some of this stuff I'm not going to read. I will either scroll through it and let you read it yourself, or I'll explain exactly why I'm not reading it. We'll start with this, though. This is some paperwork concerning the conflict of interest that apparently could be there as far as Mel Murder and Shotti go. Apparently, Mel Murder is trying to retain Scott Lehman, who, if you remember, was the attorney who first represented Shotti and then left the case because he was saying he'd never got his money. So there was a question raised as to whether or not Scott Lehman could represent Mel Murder based on the fact that he represented Shotti, and the court is trying to determine whether or not it's an issue. Basically, it seems like if both Mel Murder and Shotti agree to waive their right to the whole conflict of interest issue, that it's a dead issue, and that Scott Lehman could represent Mel Murder. That's what this document is. You can just read it yourself if you want. Pause it, whatever. That was the first one. We'll go over this one next. This is a letter from Lance Lazzaro in regards to other conflicts of interest as concerning 6IX9INE and Crippy. So there's actually a few potential conflicts of interest that have been raised, which is kind of interesting. This is where I believe Alshon Martin is claiming that Shotti is snitching, is from these conflicts of interest being raised. But in all actuality, it's not just Shotti where these issues are coming from. Again, the last one was a conflict of interest between Mel Murder and Shotti. This one, they're saying, is between Crippy and 6IX9INE. There's also conflicts of interest between Shotti and 6IX9INE. I'm going to go over all this, though. So this is the letter that Lance Lazzaro, who is 6IX9INE's attorney, this is the guy who they're trying to have removed from the case, potentially. He was told to respond and break down, his involvement with these other defendants. I'm just going to read this. Dear Judge Engelmeyer, as your honor is aware, I represent Daniel Hernandez with regard to the above referenced case. As discussed at the Curcio hearing on January 22nd, 2019, I had previously represented Mr. Hernandez, co-defendant in the above referenced case, Fahim Walter, in one prior unrelated state case. In fact, my prior representation of Fahim Walter was extremely limited in both substance and duration. I previously represented Fahim Walter in the case entitled The People of the State of New York versus Fahim Walter under docket number whatever. I had never had a substantive conversation with Fahim Walter about the facts of this case before Fahim Walter was arraigned in criminal court on November 13, 2018. He spent about 2 weeks in the hospital, and as a result, when Fahim Walter was arraigned in criminal court, his release was mandated by Section 180.80 of the Criminal Procedure Law, which eliminated the need to speak with Fahim Walter about the facts of the case. After his arraignment, November 13, 2018, I never again saw or spoke with Fahim Walter. His case was later dismissed on January 8, 2019 at the request of New York County District Attorney's Office. I am now writing this letter in response to the issues raised during the Curcio hearing held on January 22nd. Okay, so he is arguing as to why there's no conflict of interest here as far as Crippy and 6IX9INE goes. It says, in this case, while it appears to be quite remote, there is arguably a potential conflict of interest as my result of my former representation of Fahim Walter in the one short-lived state case discussed above, which was unrelated to this case before your honor. Regardless, any potential conflict in this case should be deemed waivable by Mr. Hernandez because the conflict lies with Mr. Hernandez, not Fahim Walter, and since Mr. Hernandez would be considerably the affected party. So basically, I'm not going to read all this. He's arguing that any potential conflict of interest between Crippy and 6ix9ine is only would be affecting 6ix9ine. So as long as 6ix9ine waives the conflict of interest, there should be none. That's what his argument is. That's what my take on this paperwork is. So you can read it if you want. That's the rest of this. Go to the next one. So the next one is another letter from Lance Lazzaro. This is about Shotti. This is the interesting, at least interesting in the fact of Shotti was called a snitch. So this is the paperwork, related to the conflict of interest between 6ix9ine and Shotti. Again, another letter from Lance Lazzaro to the judge. As your honor is aware, I represent Daniel Hernandez with regard to the above referenced case. As discussed at the Curcio hearing, January 22nd, 2019, I previously represented Mr. Hernandez, co-defendant in the above referenced case, Kafano Jordan. I previously represented Kafano Jordan with regard to the following cases. So there's 4 cases where Shotti was represented by Lance Lazzaro. I am writing this letter in response to the issues raised during the Curcio hearing held on January 22nd, 2019, and specifically to address any potential conflict of interest involving Mr. Hernandez and Kafano Jordan. The Sixth Amendment guarantees a criminal defendant the right to the assistance of counsel for his defense. The Supreme Court has indicated the district courts must recognize a presumption in favor of a defendant's counsel of choice, a presumption that may be overcome only upon showing of an actual conflict of serious potential. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next paragraph. It says, in this case, arguably there is a potential conflict as a result of my former representation of Kafano Jordan in various state cases which are completely unrelated to the case before your honor. Nevertheless, any potential conflict in this case should be deemed waivable by Mr. Hernandez because the conflict lies with Mr. Hernandez, not Kafano Jordan. So basically, he's arguing for both these conflicts of interest because, again, they're trying to have Lance Lazzaro removed as 6ix9ine's attorney. He's arguing that if there was a conflict of interest, that it's not with anybody else other than 6ix9ine. So that's what this paperwork states. This is his response. Apparently, he was told by the judge that he needed to show all the instances where he represented these other people and then, make his argument as to why this is not a conflict of interest. That's what that is. We'll go to the next one. This is basically some paperwork that is, I'll just read it real quick. This is from the judge. The court received the letters from Dawn M. Carty, Esquire, and Scott Lehman, stating regrettably that neither can attend the Curcio hearing. The court is scheduled. Okay, so this is just them saying they couldn't attend that conference. We'll keep going to the next one. I think I might have clicked this already. Yeah, okay, so we'll go to this one. This is from the state, I believe, or the feds, I believe. The government respectfully submits this letter in response to court's January 11, 2019 order directing the government to work with MCC personnel. Okay, so this is about the discovery. Basically, they've already made a protective order with this discovery in this case, and this is basically just them explaining the coordination of that material to the defense and also to the defendants. So it's not really anything major. We'll skip that. Go to this one. This is actually kind of interesting. This is a motion to dismiss this case, I believe, right? We're going to read this all. Notice of motion. Dear Jeffrey S. Berman, Southern District Federal Court of New York, and any co-defense attorneys and any current or future judge To Jeffrey S. Berman or any future prosecutor, motion for case to be dismissed. On 11/19/2018, a federal case opened in the above plaintiff's name and the court's proceeding were administered by charges of a grand jury. The above enterprise in question is being held without a cross-examining of any of injured party or grand jury herein. No notice was given to cross-examine above United States of America and Jeffrey S. Berman or any current or future prosecutor or any injured party pursuant therein. To anything that bounds him, it says, to Jones-Lethal Treyway Enterprise has not signed any contracts or verbally agreed to anything that bounds him to the above jurisdiction therein, including waive of 120-day speedy trial or enters of plea by enter of not guilty, guilty, or other plea. If plea is made by coercion from current bar attorney, this document withdraws it by law. Enter of 120 speedy trial. Case or petitioner Jeffrey S. Berman did not attend court for plaintiff claim, which makes the case number whatever eligible for lien claim by Jones-Lethal Enterprise Treyway. Jones-Lethal Enterprise hereby claims case number whatever and possession of administrative control. Jeffrey S. Berman or any current or future prosecutor have not filed 1099 OID to tax the source of business for bond insurance issued by incarceration. If a bond is not issued, the courts must provide liability. Furthermore, Jeffrey S. Berman or any other foreign court cannot legally claim injuries or prosecution or discharge any case for anyone or claim any lien or jurisdiction over any human being mentioned, which makes no human mentioned in this indictment eligible for liability or incarceration. Only commercial names and businesses. Discharged by public policy acceptance of debt 73-10. Any liens made for Jones-Lethal Enterprise Treyway or its name without its notice puts motion against it in this court dishonorable. So they're trying to cancel these liens. Cancel contract case. Case closed. Accounts adjusted to zero. All human beings incarcerated released immediately. Counterclaim $1 million by default awarded to Jones-Lethal Treyway. Case dismissed. Jones-Lethal Treyway hereby notices Jeffrey S. Berman, United States of America, and any current or future prosecutor through an honorable motion of this court to produce an OMB number from filing a 1099 on this negotiable instrument by December 12th, 2018. A 10-day notice or case dismissed by default, and also by default authorized representative signature. Okay, so basically this was a motion to have this case dismissed. Let's keep going. This is the protective order that I was telling you about. We already covered this in a previous video where it's talking about the discovery and how they're going to view the discovery as far as defendants go. Okay, I'll read this real quick. Rights pursuant to the court's January 11, 2019 order directing the government to set forth its views as to the potential conflict of interest posed by Mr. Lehman representing Jamel Jones after having represented Kufano Jordan, whether the conflict is waivable and the allocution appropriate for Jones and Jordan. The government has conferred with Mr. Lehman, Mr. Roth, Mr. Einhorn concerning Mr. Lehman's representation of Jordan. The government understands that Mr. Lehman met with Jordan on November 25, 2018, the day before the initial pretrial conference, and that Mr. Lehman and Jordan did not talk substantively about the case. In addition, Mr. Lehman has represented Mr. Lehman, and Jordan did not talk substance. Okay. In addition, Mr. Lehman has represented that he has not downloaded or reviewed any of individual Rule 16 discovery pertaining to Jordan. Accordingly, based on the representation of counsel, it does not appear that Jordan relayed any confidential information to Mr. Lehman. If that is the case, then the government does not see. Okay, so basically they're saying as long as Scott Lehman didn't get any discovery from SHOTTie, that there is no conflict of interest. From their view, they're not going to argue a conflict of interest. So that's basically everything as pertains to this whole situation. So that's basically it. This is all the information that's out right now. The discovery has been put out. So if anybody is snitching, whoever the snitch is or whatever's going on, that information would be available to the defense. But the thing is, as of right now, it's been put in a protective order that nobody can speak on any of the information that they receive as far as this discovery goes legally. So that doesn't mean that, you know, the snitch isn't going to get outed. It just means that the defendants in this case and their representation are ordered by a court order to keep all of that information confidential. So at this point, based on the paperwork that we looked at, it's kind of strange that there's all these conflict of interest being raised as far as these different people are concerned. But in my eyes, having a conflict of interest raised does not equate to snitching. And if that's the case, it doesn't state exactly where all these conflicts of interest came from, who initially brought these to light, but it's not just with SHOTTie. Again, this is between SHOTTie and Mel Murder. This is between Crippy and 6IX9INE. This is between 6IX9INE and SHOTTie. So there's multiple different conflicts of interest that have apparently arose in this case, potential conflicts of interest. And it does seem like people are trying to get rid of 6IX9INE's attorney for whatever reason. Again, this is just my speculation based on what I've seen, but that doesn't really equate to snitching. In my eyes, it would equate more to like some hate type stuff. Like, for whatever reason, this attorney, they don't want him on the case, it would seem. Again, this is just my speculation based on what I've seen. There's no actual paperwork at this point saying, though, that SHOTTie snitched. I don't know how that came up or why it came up, but this should help kind of clear it up. I have no bias in this case either. All I'm doing is presenting the paperwork as it exists to the public and basically just giving my little brief rundown of what I'm reading so you have a better understanding. But again, we don't have any proof SHOTTie snitching, so I wouldn't put that label on him at this point. That's not to say that people in this case aren't snitching, or there isn't going to be any potential snitching, or that they haven't already snitched as far as what this discovery goes. But there's nothing out of this current paperwork that's available that is pointing towards anybody snitching. That's just my take. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I definitely appreciate you watching. Before you leave this video, hit the like for me, subscribe, share, all that. I'm going to put a link up to my other channel, Hip Hop Classics Daily News. You like the content on this channel, I need you over there subscribed. Go hit that link. Just hit the subscribe for me. I appreciate you. Peace.